everybody, welcome back to another week. Did you see me with a hat on? Yes. Was it because I didn't comb my hair? Yes. Was I wearing glasses? Yes. Was it because I've been staring at a computer screen for far too long? Yes. Is it okay? Of course it's okay. I'm doing it all for you guys because I love you. I stare at a computer screen a lot, editing videos and more videos and reading and just a lot of stuff. My eyes are actually tweaking out right now. Have I showered today? Probably not. Did I brush my teeth though? Maybe. But on to today's lesson, on to today's encouraging word. And I didn't really know how to title this one, and I've been really thinking about it, like trying to conjure up, and I'm trying to go with the theme that we've been going on with the, God is ... What is he? And I couldn't figure out what exactly it was that I wanted to say. And so I just entitled it, God is amazing. And of course, he's amazing for probably an infinite amount of reasons, but this thought just kept coming to mind that God will use people like me, just an average regular guy who wears a hat when he doesn't comb his hair, who brushes his teeth regularly, but my wife says I don't, who just has, a normal ability as anyone else would, nothing special. I'm actually probably bad. Is that how you say it? I'm probably actually worse. I'm bad at more things than I am good. That's what I wanted to say. But God is so amazing for using someone like me and someone like you to do amazing things, not because we're amazing, but because he's amazing. And I want to share this thought that I've had in my head for like the last couple of weeks, especially as we've been going through the book of Acts. Acts is just the origin story of the church. We look around and we say, okay, I get church. We have a building, there's several buildings, there's all these buildings, but we can't go to them right now. But we have a building that we go to, and that's the church, right? We get that kind of, even though it's more than that. How did we get to this point? How did we get to a point where now the church meets in a building, but it's not the building? So we know where the ending point is, but how did we actually get here? And that's the book of Acts, basically. But in Acts chapter 3, there's this really crazy event that happens. And it's a simple event, a short little event that happens. And Peter and John are going to the temple to pray. And on the way to the temple, there's this lame man, which basically means he just can't walk, sitting at the doorstep of the temple. And he's just asking for handout. Can you spare a buck? I can't work, so can you give me something? And Peter and John are going to the temple to pray, and they're walking up and they see this lame man. And the conversation that they have with this guy is so profound to me for several reasons. And first is because, Peter and John look at this man, they say, "Look at me." And I only imagine that they say that because, I don't know, I just picture this idea of this guy being so embarrassed by his situation, not being able to go into the temple, having to sit in front of the temple where all these people are going in to pray to get close to God, and he has to sit on the outside. I have to imagine that there's some sort of embarrassment. It's like, here I am again, just asking for a handout. And Peter and John stop and they ask the man to look at him. And when he looks at him, pause for a second as I put myself in his shoes. If I'm him sitting at the doorstep of the temple, watching everyone go in, and then two people say, "Hey, look at me," I'm not sure what to expect. I mean, are they going to give me a handout? What is it that they want? And then I think how interesting is that when Peter and John look at him and they say, "Look at me," and he looks up, I might think, okay, they're going to obviously give me something, right? Spare a dollar, a loaf of bread, whatever it might be. They're going to give me something. And then to have these guys come back and look at you and say, "I don't have anything for you," I would probably be pretty annoyed, a little ticked off even, just a little ungrateful of like, okay, listen, you see my situation. First of all, I can't walk. I'm begging for food. I'm begging for money. I just need something. And then you tell me, "Hey, look at me because I got nothing for you." No, it's just weird. Throws me off for a second. But listen to what happened next. Peter looks at this guy, tells him to look back at him. He looks back at him, and Peter says, "Listen, I don't have anything for you. I don't have any silver. I don't have any gold. But what I do have, I will give to you." And Peter basically says, "Listen, it's not silver, it's not gold that you even need. You need what I have, and that's God. You need God, my friend." And Peter says, "I can't give you the stuff, but let me heal you. Let's go into the temple where you can find God." And so Peter heals him, lifts him up, and they walk into the temple together. And this is why it's such a big deal. This is why he needs God. And this is why Peter does what he does. Because as a lame person, a guy who couldn't walk, the people in the temple would view that guy as unclean, meaning there's something wrong with him and he can't enter the grounds because he'll make everything unclean. And so again, this is why this guy is outside of the temple asking for money, asking for food, asking for whatever it might be. And Peter comes along and says, it's not that you need God. And the way I can get you to God is by healing you and bring you into the temple. And so this guy is healed. Peter wants to show him God, and so he enters the temple jumping and praising God for what had just happened, that he couldn't walk, but now he can. And not only that, everyone in the temple recognizes this guy. They're just like, isn't that the guy who was just outside, who couldn't walk, who was begging for money, and now he's inside the temple, healed, walking, and praising God? That's him. They know exactly who he is. Again, this is Acts chapter 3. I encourage you to read this because you're not going to regret it. But in this small little event, in this small interaction with Peter and John, I've been kind of taking away these three big thoughts of mine. And the first one is, how do we treat people on the outside? You know, for the most part, living in Clovis, California, we can kind of get stuck in this Christian bubble. And the only time we explore outside of that Christian bubble is when we're not quarantined, when we're at school or when we're at work. And sometimes it's really easy for us to do this at church, especially inside the building, to be like, when new people come, well, they're on the outside and we're on the inside. And it's something you do not even consciously. And the reason I know you don't do that consciously is because we're not conscious to go out and reach those people who are coming in, who are new. And I think this is a pattern for me that I always look to the person who's on the outside. I always want to ask the question, how do we treat new people? And I think the reason I always go back to that is because it's so rooted down deep inside of me that I know too many people who have been hurt by Christians before they even get to hear about Jesus. And when I was reading this event in Acts chapter 3, it really got me thinking to say, how do we treat those people on the outside? How do we treat those people who look different than us? How do we treat those people who just seem different? And to be honest, when I look at junior high ministry, when I look at high school ministry, we are really, really, really bad at it. And the reason is we are not that welcoming. We're friendly, sure, but we're not very welcoming, which is a huge difference. But this is also what I love about Jesus, that Jesus not only makes your life better, but he makes you better at life. Because when you follow Jesus' example, you can see that he's always going out to the person on the outside, that person who can't come in on their own, the person that people shun and push away. Jesus always reaches out to those people first because he's not only friendly, but he's welcoming. And here's my little challenge, or my little thing, my thought experience that I want you to really think about. Because have you ever said, or have you known someone to say some of these things? Why would I hang out with them? They are so annoying. They look just funny to me. They look different. They are friends with those people, and I don't really hang out with those people. And maybe you've never said those things, or you've never heard those things said, but it's also possible that you've thought it. And maybe you've never thought this, but your actions clearly show that you do. Because honestly, think about this. Do a self-assessment of yourself. When you've seen someone new at church, that is, when we were at church, when you saw someone new, when you didn't know someone, how many times did you go up to them and introduce yourself? How many times did you say to yourself, oh, someone else will do that? Or did you even notice? Did you even notice when that new person came in? Or were you so self-involved with your current friends, with your current situations, with your current conversation, and you miss the person on the outside? And this is the part that breaks my heart so much. Is because it shows where our hearts are really at. It shows how dark we can actually be. That we don't care to notice the people coming in, wanting to be part of our group, to experience Jesus. That we as Christians hurt people before we even get a chance to share Jesus with them. Again, this is how Jesus makes you better at life. Because when we look at his example, You were once that person who was annoying. You were once that person who looked different. You were once Jesus' enemy. And yet he goes out to you, even if it makes him uncomfortable, even if it's not convenient, even if he's in the middle of a conversation with all his friends, because he notices you, the one on the outside. And I have to be completely honest that when I look back on when we were meeting, when we were in a church setting, when we had a group, I'm so frustrated at myself, and I'm so frustrated at us as a group, that we would be so caught up in just us, that we would be too busy and too blind to see the new person, to welcome the new person, to not just be friendly, but be welcoming. That we were too busy and too blind to see the outsider, to bring them in only by reaching out. Now, the second thing that I've been really thinking about in this little short interaction, again, Acts chapter 3, go and read it, is the drastic life change that happens. This man's life was radically changed. Everyone knew what his life looked like before, that he had a past. Everyone knew what that looked like, but now it looks completely different. And this is the simplified version of what I've been thinking, is that everyone has a story. Everyone has been somewhere, whether it's really good or really bad or dark, places you don't want to talk about, places you just rather keep hidden, but everyone has been somewhere. Everyone has a past. But when Jesus comes in the picture, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, Jesus changes everything. And there's no reason to hide from it. There's no reason to keep it secret, but know that there's this radical change in your life. And when people see the old you and this new you, they're going to wonder what exactly happened. I mean, this guy was outside the temple, couldn't walk. People see him and say, isn't that the guy who was outside who couldn't walk? But now he's inside walking and praising God. What's going on here? And so the question I've been asking myself is, what is the story that I'm telling? Again, I have a past. I have some things that I've done. I have things that I wish I could hide. I have all those things. But what is the story that I'm telling now? When people see my life, do they see the old me and this new me and ask, what happened? Or is it just this old me who's kind of blended into a better person? Or is it this radical life change? That's the question that I'm struggling with. I want it to be a radical life change where people can't help but ask, what happened to you? Or here's another way to think about this old self and new self. Do people know you for just you, this old stuff? Or do people know you after what Jesus has done in your life, this radical life change? Do they know you for you, or do they know you because of what Jesus has done in your life? What story are you telling by how you treat the people around you? Because I can definitely tell you, old self people are selfish. Old self people keep to themselves. Old self people will gossip about other people. That's just what old self people do. But new people who are in Christ, they do the exact opposite almost. They want to lift up people. They want to be humble. They want to serve. They want to, go out and make someone's day better. And so we have to ask this question of how well are we loving God's children? And we're all God's children. Your neighbor, the person across the street, the person who looks different, the person who's annoying, all those different people that you once said, or that you might say, someone else will do it. They look too different. They're just weird. Oh, they give me dirty looks. And every time that I think about loving people on the outside, I can't help but think of Tuesday, Thursday girl. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this story, but there used to be this girl that I used to go to high school with, and I called her Tuesday, Thursday girl. I don't know her name till this day. I don't know anything about her really other than my experience with her, but every Tuesday and Thursday I would come across her early in the morning. Well, maybe not that early, because the reason I came across her was we were late to school every day, or at least Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we'd be the only ones walking because we were that late. But Tuesday, Thursday girl, and every time I saw her at lunch on campus, she was with somebody new. And this person that she would sit with, the person that she would sit and talk and eat lunch with, looked like people she probably shouldn't hang out with. Because the people that she sat with were definitely people I would say were on the outside. They looked radically different than her. And really, they sat by themselves and they were far away from everyone else, and they were secluded and no one noticed them except for her. And every time I saw her sitting and asking questions and talking, And every time it was a person who was by themselves on the outside. And it's nuts to me that her life will be forever ingrained as Tuesday, Thursday girl, the girl who sat with strangers and loved on them. I mean, I think that's pretty darn cool. And then here's my final thought from, again, Acts chapter 3, is that when I look at this guy who's now praising God inside the temple, I see that he actually got what he needed and not what he thought he needed. You know, he was asking for gold and he was asking for silver. He was asking for anything except for the thing that he actually needed. So a few days ago, we ordered this inflatable pool for the kids to put outside in the backyard. And they really haven't left since we got it. And I'm pretty sure by now they're just a pile of soggy skin. Really tan, soggy skin. But when it got here, my wife was super excited and wanted to blow up right away. And it just hit me that, you know, how are we going to blow this up? Because my inflator thing, the battery had completely died, like doesn't work at all. And I'm thinking, how are we going to do this? This thing is huge. I'm not just going to put a bike pump to it. If I did that, it wouldn't be done till next year. And so I'm thinking, how am I going to get this done? This isn't just going to work. Either we can't pump it up today and we'll just have to wait until I order a new battery, or I'm going to pass out from trying to blow it up with my lungs. And so for some reason, I just go looking in the garage. I start looking through all my stuff. You know, I look in the tool chest. I look in, you know, the shed. I'm just looking for something. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for. And as I'm looking through all the stuff, this little thing falls out. And it falls out a couple of times. And I'm just like, what? I don't even know what this is for. And so I throw it back into the tool chest and I head out to the shed and I'm looking around and I'm like, there's nothing here. Like, I don't know what I'm looking for because inflator doohickey thing is broken. What can I use? I'm not using the bike pump. I'm not using my lungs. What is it that I'm looking for? And so I'm in the shed and then I come across this paint sprayer, which I love actually. It's the Home Right Finish Max 5000. Just kidding. I don't know if it's a 5000, but I love it. I paint, whatever. And so I come across that and I'm like, okay, this is useless. What am I looking for, Steven? Like, I'm just hitting myself in the head trying to figure out what is it that I need to do. So I go back to the garage. I'm looking again through the tool chest. And again, this thing falls out. I'm like, what is this? And so I head into the house and I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just going to bite the bullet. I'm going to get on Amazon or whatever and buy a new battery for my inflator doohickey thing. And I'm about to tell my wife, like, it's not going to happen tonight. And then it clicks for me that you put this black useless thing and you take this painter sprayer that has nothing to do with blowing up inflatables. But when you take the black useless thing and the paint sprayer that has nothing to do with inflatables and put this onto here, you get a blow machine, dude. And it was like right then where I'm like, I've had everything I've needed right in front of me and I didn't even know it. I was just looking and asking for the wrong thing. And this all brought me back to Acts chapter 3 where I felt like that guy who couldn't walk. That I was asking for all this stuff. I need silver, I need gold, and sure, those things are great, but it's not the thing that I actually need. You see, I needed a blow doohickey thingamabobber, but I was only looking for it in one spot, the thing that didn't work. And it wasn't until I put the pieces together that I found something that worked. And it was the same thing for this lame guy, that he needed something and he thought, I need this and I need that and this is what I need. But when Peter and John came along, they said, listen, you need God. And here's my point though, is that maybe you've felt much of the same way, that you feel like you need something and you need more of it and then you need some more of that, but it's still not filling you up. And I want to suggest that the thing that you ultimately need isn't this, whatever this might be, but the thing that you need is God. That you've always had the right tools there, but you've never been asking the right questions. You've never been looking in the right spot. You haven't put the puzzle pieces together. That what meets your needs is the person who created those needs, and it's God. And since we've been on quarantine, I've been talking to so many people just to see how they're doing, just to check up on them, how they're keeping busy. And there's a few things that I keep hearing over and over and over. The first thing I hear is, it's been so nice to just slow down. It's been so nice just to hang out with family. And if I don't get that response, the next response is always, I'm just so bored. I need something to do. And with those two responses, I want to help us out a little bit. Because remember, before this whole quarantine happened, before this whole pandemic happened, you were too busy to do the things that you actually wanted to do. Or at least that you said you wanted to do. And I think now that we have time to do those things, it's really starting to reveal a little bit of our heart. That we used our busyness as an excuse not to do the things that we said we wanted to do, only because they weren't our priority. They weren't on our priority list, and so that's why we didn't do them. We said things like, man, as soon as this is over, as soon as things slow down, I'm going to start reading my Bible. As soon as, everything calms down with school and work and activities, whatever it might be, then I'm going to go to youth group. Then I'm going to start this. Then I'm going to quit that. Then I'll be able to invest in God. You see, you weren't doing those things before because they really weren't a priority in your life. And now that things have slowed down, are you doing them now? You're probably not, just because I know my heart, which probably reflects your heart, and it's that they just weren't a priority for you. And so now that we have time, and now that we're all bored, let's do something about it. Let's make some things our priority, the things that we said that we would make a priority, but now this is kind of revealing our own hearts. Let's change that a little bit and make it our priority, or at least take a baby step to say, I'll test out the waters. What else am I going to do? Let's put the black thing on the painter thing to see if we can make something work for us. And so here's my challenge with all this time and with us being bored. I want to challenge you with this. First, start reading the book of Acts. The book of Acts plays out like a movie. It's so fast paced and you see all these things come together. It's like these puzzle pieces that are finally starting to make sense because you already know the big picture. Again, we get and we see how the church is now, but how did we actually get here? The book of Acts is that origin story. So I challenge you to read the book of Acts, or start reading the book of Acts and ask questions and study and figure it out. Which leads me to my second challenge, and that is ask a question and research it. You can ask me, you can ask it to yourself, you can start Googling stuff. Because listen, if I say that God meets every need because He's the creator of those needs, wouldn't you want to know if God is real, if He makes sense, if He's actually out there, is He reasonable? But that only starts if you start asking questions. And if you have a question and you want me to address it, or if you want me to answer it, but you don't want me to know that you're asking this question, head to slido.com using this hashtag, ask it there. It can be anonymous and I'll do my best to answer it. Whether in one of these videos or on Instagram or maybe both, whatever it might be, I want to have a conversation with your questions while we have all this time and we're all bored. And those questions that you can Google and research about God, for example, you can just ask, why is there evil and suffering in the world? How does a good God and evil and suffering make sense? Or you can ask something like, isn't it all about being a good person? I mean, why do we have to believe in God? Start there and Google it. Be able to give a reason why you do or don't believe in God. And second, not only just ask questions about God, but ask questions about yourself and journal those questions. Journal those answers. Journal the journey that you're on. You could ask things like, why do I believe in God? Or why don't I believe in God? What are those reasons behind me believing what I believe? Why am I a Christian at all? Is it because your parents? Is it because you've come to some realization of something? What is it? Why are you a Christian? Why do you call yourself a Jesus follower? Or you can ask yourself the simple question of, why don't I do the things that I want to do? There are certain things that you say, I want to do this, I want to work on that, I want to do all those things, but yet we find ourselves not doing them. Why? What keeps us from taking that step? Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Is it not knowing enough? Is it feeling embarrassment? Is it feeling ridicule? What's behind that? And journal about it. And this is my last challenge, which might be the greatest challenge, or at least the challenge that makes you step out of your comfort zone the most. It's find a YouTube video, find any video. It could be this video. And I want you to share it with somebody. But then once you share it and have them watch it, I want you to discuss it with them. So it could be a video about anything. It could be about a video about any of those reasons I said earlier, of like God's existence or evil and suffering, or it's all about being a good person. Have them watch a short video on that and have a conversation. What is it that they believe and what is it that you believe? What is that conversation going to look like? I want you to talk about these things. You know, in a lot of ways, I envy the man who was lame but was praising God, walking and dancing in the temple. Because in the end, he found exactly what he needed. And it wasn't what he thought. And this man's story has been in our history for 2,000 years. That there was a man who was lame, but then he gets up and starts praising God. Imagine having that legacy. That, yeah, here's a whole story of his past, of what it looked like, being put at the temple doors, having to beg for food, couldn't walk. But his legacy is that he got up and he was healed and he praised God inside the temple. To me, that's just an amazing story. And what would you want your legacy to be? Is it just you being a better person, or is it you getting up and being healed and praising God? And we remember him not because of what he did, but what God did through him. And I think that's just pretty cool. So I challenge you, and if you accept any of those challenges, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to be part of your journey. And if you want to know what those challenges were, they'll be in the notes. So have a blessed day, guys. And don't forget the people on the outside. Remember what Jesus has done for you, that once you were an outsider, but he saw you and only brought you in by reaching out. And this is how Jesus makes you better at life, by following that example. How well do you love his children? Bye.